IPv6 addresses. In this video, I'm going to talk about unicast IPv6 addresses. You know that in the previous video, I talked about the multicast IPv6 addresses, and I mentioned that all of the multicast IPv6 addresses start with the FF, and the general syntax for the multicast IPv6 address is FF00:8. This is the general syntax of the multicast IPv6 address. For now, I want to talk about unicast. Unicast has some types. We have some type of unicast IPv6 address. For example, global unicast IPv6 address, link local IPv6 address, loopback IPv6 address, unspecified IPv6 address, unique local IPv6 address, or embedded IPv4 IPv6 address. Okay, in this video and some of the next videos, future videos, I would talk about the, for example, many type of the unicast IPv6 address. But for now, I want to talk about two of the unicast IPv6 address types. First, unspecified, and then loopback. Let's start talking about the unspecified unicast IPv6 address and then loopback unicast IPv6 address. But first, I want to review the same concept of these two types in the IPv4. Okay, let me to review the IPv4 address. This is IPv6 address. In IPv4 addressing, you know that we have unicast, multicast, and broadcast. Okay, two of unicast IPv4 address is unspecified. Okay, and another type is loopback unicast IPv4 address. You know that we use quad 0, not quad 0/0, quad 0 for the, for example, quad 0/32 for the unspecified IP address. For example, in IPv4, when your PC wants to take an IP address from DHCP service because it does not have any IP address, should use quad 0 as the source IP in the packet to quad 255, for example, the broadcast for finding the DHCP. Okay, we use quad 0 unspecified IPv4 unicast address when we don't have an IP address. Okay, and after we take an IP address, we should use our specific IP address. Also, in IPv6 we have same function. Okay, in IPv6 unicast we have unspecified IPv6 address, and the format of this IP address is 0, again 0, 0, 0, 0, quad 0, then 0, 0, 0, 0. 8 hextet /128. Okay, you know that we can omit the leading 0, and then we can compress the IPv6 address. For example, by default, this unspecified IP address has, for example, 40 in every hextet, but I omitted the leading 0. You know that this is the first rule of simplifying the IPv6 address. Look at here. The original IPv6 address for the unspecified IPv6 address is this IP address, but I am omitting the leading 0 here. Look at here, 0, 0 again, and now we have a compressed form. We have a smaller form of the IPv6 address, of this IPv6 address, and also we can compress this IP to double colon. Okay, you know that we can omit all of the zeros and then using a double colon. Now we have double colon /128. This means that this is an IP, and this is the unspecified IPv6 unicast address, and we can use it in special cases. For example, we can use it as a source address, and this indicates the absence of an IPv6 address. When you don't have IPv6 address, you can use this IP address for example, source IP. This IP address can be used only in the source IPv6 address. This is the first type of the unicast IPv6 addresses, unspecified. Now we can add this type to our for example table. Look at here, this is our table, and now we learn about one of the unicast IPv6 addresses, and that is unspecified :/128. This is an IPv6 address. Okay, very good. Let's talk about the loopback unicast IPv6 address. But first, again, I want to talk about loopback unicast IPv4 address. You know that we are using the 127 range in IPv4 for loopback testing. For example, if you want to check the TCP IPv4 is installed in the PC or your system, you can ping one of the IPs in this range. For example, 127.0.0.1. Look at here. This is my CMD, the CMD of my PC. Ping. Okay. 127.0.0.1. Now we can see the ping reply. What does this mean? This means is that TCP IP version 4 is installed in this system, and I can use this protocol suite. Okay, this is the loopback IPv4 address. Again, we have the same function in the IPv6 unicast addressing, and because of that we have another unicast IP address, and that is the loopback IPv6 address. Okay, how we can test the availability, the installing the, for example, IPv6 in our TCP IPv6 in our system. This is the IP address of the loopback IPv6 address. Look at here. Here I used 1. If you want to compress this IP or omitting the leading 0, you should write this form of the IP. Only at the last hexstate you should use 1. Okay, and then if you want to compress this IP address, this is the compressed form of the loopback IPv6 address, :1. If you want, you can check the availability of TCP IPv6 in your system. We check the connectivity with to this IP. Look at here in my CMD, ping, okay, :1. This is the IPv6 loopback unicast address. Let's check it. And now you can see we received reply from this IP. This means that TCP IPv6 now is installed in my system and I can use it. Very good. This is the second type of IPv6 unicast address, the loopback IPv6 address. Let's add this to the, for example, our table. This is the loopback, and the loopback IPv6 address is :1/128. You should check this, for example, IP address availability, connectivity in your system. Don't forget, you can't assign the loopback IPv6 address to a system, to a host, and this IP address only can be used for sending a packet to itself in a system and checking the availability of the TCP IPv6 in a host. This is the second type of the IPv6 unicast address. Now you learn about the multicast IPv6 address and its structure, and then you learn about the two of the unicast IPv6 address, unspecified and loopback. Okay, in the next video I want to talk about another type of the unicast IPv6 address, but before that I want to mention that Anycast IPv6 address doesn't have a special IP address. We used Unicast IP address for anycasting, okay, but we should configure that this IP address used for anycasting. I will talk about this feature